The Space Between Us, Part 2. The message came just after midnight. We need to talk. Evan stared at the screen for a long time, his heart pounding in the dark. The words felt heavy, uncertain, final. He didn't know what she wanted to say, but for the first time in months, he felt hope. He typed back before he could overthink it. Yeah, we should. Maybe tomorrow? There's something I need to tell you, too. When she replied with a simple, okay, he couldn't sleep that night. He rehearsed the words he'd been too afraid to say for years. He imagined telling her everything, how every laugh, every silence, every shared moment had meant more to him than she could ever know, how no one had ever filled the space she left behind. He knew it was risky, maybe too late, but love, even the unreturned kind, has a way of convincing you that truth is better than regret. Tomorrow, he would finally tell her. The next afternoon, they met at the park near the river. Their spot, the one where they used to sit for hours, watching the water ripple under the light. Maya arrived first. She stood near the bench, her hair tied up, her eyes soft but distant. When she saw him, she smiled, that same smile that had once been his favorite thing in the world. Hey, she said, her voice light but unsure. Hey, he replied, trying not to show how nervous he was. They hugged, briefly, politely, like two people who've forgotten how to be close. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was heavy with everything they hadn't said. Finally, Maya broke the silence. Can I go first? Evan's heart skipped. Yeah, sure. She took a deep breath, looking down for a moment before meeting his eyes. I don't really know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it. He nodded, every muscle tense, waiting. He braced himself, thinking maybe she was about to say she missed how things used to be. Maybe, just maybe, she had felt it too. Then she smiled, small at first, then wider, brighter. Chase proposed. Evan froze. For a second, the world seemed to blur. The sounds of the river, the birds, the laughter of strangers in the distance. Everything fell away. He blinked, unsure if he'd heard her right. What? She laughed softly, tears glistening in her eyes. He proposed last night. It was perfect. I wasn't expecting it at all. Evan's chest tightened. It felt like someone had taken all the air from his lungs. He forced a smile, the kind that hurt to hold. Wow, that's amazing, Maya. Her eyes lit up, glowing with joy. I wanted you to be the first to know. You've always been there for me. You're my best friend. The words best friend landed softly, but they hurt like a whisper in an empty room. He nodded slowly, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm really happy for you. Inside, his heart was breaking quietly, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in slow motion, like glass cracking under pressure. He had imagined this moment so many times, but never like this. He was supposed to confess, to finally say the words he'd buried for so long. But how could he now? How could he look at her glowing with joy and tell her that her happiness was the thing tearing him apart? So he didn't. He lied. I actually had something to tell you, too, he said, forcing a small laugh. I got a promotion at work. Her face brightened. Evan, that's amazing. See? Everything's working out for both of us. He smiled, even though it hurt. Yeah, everything. She hugged him then, full of warmth, full of love that wasn't his to keep. And as she held him, he realized this was the moment he had to let go. The days that followed blurred into each other. Evan buried himself in work, in noise, in anything that wasn't silence. But silence always found him. He tried dating again. There was Sophie, the art teacher with kind eyes and a quiet laugh. They went to a small gallery once. She talked about colors and meaning, about how art always tells the truth. He nodded, smiled, pretended to listen. But all he could think about was how Maya used to describe things too. Full of life, full of wonder. Then there was Lila, who liked coffee shops and Sunday walks. She was patient, thoughtful, and everything a person should want. But when she laughed, it didn't feel the same. When she touched his hand, his heart didn't move. He realized he wasn't looking for love. He was searching for her. One night, after another date that ended with polite smiles and silence, He walked home through the rain. The city lights blurred through his windshield like watercolor. He thought about how love had always been simple for Maya, how she had let it in so easily. For him, love had always been quiet, unspoken, waiting, and waiting had become a habit he didn't know how to break. Months passed. He stopped hearing from Maya as often. She was busy, planning, traveling, living. Sometimes she'd send pictures, a restaurant she loved, a sunset she thought he'd appreciate, a photo of Chase smiling beside her. Every message felt like a reminder of the life she had built without him. And still, he replied with kindness. Because that's what love does when there's nowhere else to go. It turns into care, then distance, then silence. When the wedding invitation arrived, he stared at it for hours. The envelope was white, elegant, perfect, just like everything about her. He thought about not going. He thought about writing her a letter instead, something honest, something final. But he didn't, because love, even unreturned, is still about showing up. So he went. The ceremony was small, intimate, a garden wrapped in soft light, laughter drifting through the air like petals. Maya looked radiant, the kind of beautiful that didn't demand attention, but held it effortlessly. Evan stood near the back, his chest tight, his hands trembling. When her eyes met his as she walked down the aisle, she smiled. It was fleeting, almost imperceptible, but he saw it, and that was enough to make him stay. At the reception, he kept mostly to himself. He watched her dance with Chase, watched her laugh, watched the way happiness fit her so easily. It wasn't jealousy anymore, it was surrender. He realized that maybe the most selfless kind of love is the one that doesn't need to be returned. Later that evening, she found him standing under the fairy lights near the edge of the garden. "Hey," she said, her voice soft. "You've been hiding all night." He smiled faintly, just giving the spotlight to the bride. She laughed, rolling her eyes. "You're impossible." They stood in silence for a while, the music fading behind them. It felt like old times, comfortable and full of everything they never said. "You've been quiet," she said finally. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" He hesitated, his gaze falling on the golden lights reflecting in her eyes. Then he said quietly, about how maybe things could have been different. Maya's smile faltered. A look of confusion crossed her face, a brief flicker of uncertainty. "What do you mean?" she asked. Evan's lips curved into a soft, almost wistful smile. "Nothing. Just life, I guess. How it surprises us." She studied him for a moment, her eyes searching his, trying to understand. Then she exhaled softly and nodded. "Yeah, I guess it does." There was a pause, one of those heavy silences that feels like the end of a chapter. "Thank you for being here," she said finally. "It means more than you know." He smiled gently. "Of course. I wouldn't have missed it." She reached out and hugged him, warm, fleeting, final. When she pulled away, she smiled again, that same radiant smile that had once made his world brighter. "Take care of yourself, okay?" she said. "You too," he replied. As she walked away, the world seemed to move in slow motion, her dress trailing, the music swelling, the laughter fading into something distant and hollow. Evan stayed until the very end, watching her dance under the string lights, surrounded by people who loved her. He smiled even as his heart ached, because love, even when unreturned, was still love. When he finally left, the night was quiet. The streets glowed under soft rain. He walked alone, his reflection following in the puddles, a ghost of what could have been. But for the first time, he didn't wish it were different. He just wished her happiness would last. He whispered into the silence, as if she could hear him. "Goodbye, Maya." Then he turned the corner, and she was gone from his sight, but never from his story. If you were Evan, would you have told her how you felt? Speech Balloon, share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more stories that stay long after the screen fades.